Hello everybody, welcome back to the follow-up video about Kato from Itsy Klein. Before I jump into these pieces, I quickly want to show you guys the flexibility of it while it's still hot, because it is quite different between when it's cooler. So here we go, there's the bend test. As you can see, it is quite easy to flex it while it is still hot. And to that point, let me quickly pick up these color pieces I was keeping on the hot tray right out of the oven. Excuse my little bits of cornstarch. Cool. Okay, so I've been playing with it, not too much, but a little bit. And so this video is all about my final impressions about Kato and what I think, as well as a bit of the other product offering, which is the liquid clay. So I've got some samples baked here of the colors, and as you can see, I'm going to bring in my box with the raw clay here. So here's the raw clay, there's the yellow. So as you can see, it's very little discoloration. Here's the turquoise. To the naked eye it turned a little bit darker, but not quite a lot. And then the magenta, it's a nice bright color. Then the blue, exactly the same. And the red, there we go, also exactly the same. Just putting that back down again. Okay, so I really like the way that it bakes. There's something else that I really like. I've been bending this yellow one now. Let me just set it straight again. Because it is such a firm clay, the way that the edges is extremely neat. I'm not sure whether you guys can see on the camera properly. When I edit this video and you can't really see, I'll put in a few like close-up videos at the photos on the end. But yeah, also teaching moment. This is why you don't bend your real pieces, because when you do that severe bend test, you might not get it perfectly straight again. Like this one is not wanting to go perfectly straight. I'm sure I'll be able to get it to go perfectly straight with a bit of fiddling, but not so much. Which now brings me to the next thing. Once this clay has cooled, this is probably the hardest clay that I have ever come across. So as it is here in my hand now, look at the amount of pressure I have to apply to get it to bend at all, and that's about how far I get it to bend. And you guys saw me bend this exact piece in the beginning of the video until it's almost nearly touching each other. So while it's still hot, it is exceptionally flexible. I would say on par with the likes of like Fimo Soft and Ye Who Shall Not Be Named Clayology. But once it's actually cooled down, it is exceptionally hard. And the other ones that is so flexible when it's still hot is they don't really get this hard when they cool down. Like they stay that flexible forever. But yeah, like you can even hear the sound it makes on towels and stuff. It's very different. The finish of this clay is very different. The actual clay piece, let me see if I can flash it in the light. You see there, it has a bit of a sheen to it. You can also see my bubbles because this piece came from that section that I made dust in the beginning in the first video. So I'm not too upset about it. These are just test pieces anyway. Cool. So in terms of color fastness, it is fantastic. I did bake the color mixes we made in that first video, but I managed to burn it because this clay you have to bake at 150 degrees, which is quite hot. It is hotter than what my oven is normally used to. I managed to burn out the electric adapter it was plugged into, didn't realize it, so it baked for too short, and that's why it was brittle, and I thought it baked too cold. So when I baked it again, I baked it for an entire hour, and I turned up the knob a little bit. I did check the thermometer in there, and it did jump to past 150, and I adjusted it back down to where it should have been, and then it came out burnt. So these pieces that's here, I've baked for only half an hour. So unlike with Sculpey, do not bake this clay for an hour, because the time factor can potentially also cause discoloration, in my very limited one-time special experience. So take with that what you want. Then let's talk about the mica shift colors and the translucent. So the clay that these are based, the base of these is not white, it is translucent. As you can see, it is a little bit translucent. I would say it is about on par with like Sculpey and such in terms of translucency. It does discolor a little bit. It doesn't stay as white as what it is in the package. So the clay that's here in this box, that is the translucent original color. So you can see that it went a little bit more yellowy. It's still not quite as yellow as Sculpey translucent. I unfortunately don't have any plain translucent Sculpey pieces on hand, but from my memory it's not quite as translucent. The mica shift though, oh my goodness. Let me see, you guys see there, if I flash these tiny little piece in the light, right? The mica shift on this is incredible. The way that it handles micro cutters as well is absolutely incredible. You can see the little cutouts there from this is Clay Cat's little I think it's a sakura blossom micro cutter, but it holds detail so fantastically. Then my translucent block is a little bit sticky in comparison to the other clays, like all the other Kato colors that I have. It's a little bit more sticky, to the degree that like if you put it down on a tile, you can't lift it without using a blade. You have to use a blade, otherwise it just deforms and goes all sorts of ways, which is what I've become accustomed to with exceptionally fresh clay. So I did buy the bigger block, and I did talk to Liesel from Jesumwa. Struggle to pronounce that one. I hope I did it justice. So I did talk to her about it, and she said that she has opened a smaller block herself, and it felt the same way than what the other color blocks did. So I think that the bigger blocks that she received is just fresher than the other color blocks. Yeah, I feel like I've been saying a lot in this video. So these bees was made with a mix of the pearlescent and the gold, with the marbling technique to make lines. So you can see it's, oh, the color is just so rich on these mica ones. Oh, I love it so much. Yeah, like, then, yeah, my favorite my favorite feature, this little piece I used as a tester piece. What I did was, the leftovers from the marbling for the bees, I mixed together until it was not quite entirely together, like the similar color. So you can see on the back here, you can still see a little bit of the pearl and a little bit of the gold showing through. And then I used the cutter that you got from the Birds and the Bees box from Lily, which is a resin cutter, which has this embossing shape on the inside. I used that, cut out a little piece, and then I put on, I think it was about 3 or 4 drops of the liquid clay on top, and I used my needle tool to spread it to the edges. and baked it. When it just came out of the oven, it wasn't quite as clear as this. I took a video of what it looked like, so I'll just append that at the end. But this one I have then hit it with the heat gun for a little bit. Just like, I think it was on and off, so I don't want to blast it with the heat gun directly, because the heat gun's temperature goes up to 250 degrees. The one that I have, it's not a variable one, it's a cheapy one. So what I do is I just keep it on the clay for like a second to 3 seconds, depending on how I'm feeling. It's very random. I'm very much struggling to bring this across, but just like a few seconds, not longer than about 3 seconds. But then I just bring the heat onto it, take it off of it, wait 3 or 5 seconds, bring it on again, take it off of it. And I did that for about a minute and a half. And look how clear it has become. So there's a bit of bubbles caught in there because I wasn't too careful with the lines. So I'm guessing that when the liquid clay that I dropped in the center, when I pushed it over the lines, it trapped a little bit of air bubbles. But look at that. It's like resin. It is actually like resin. I would almost say that it's very much like resin. Like, the only difference between this and resin is the fact that you can actually bake this. Resin you can't bake because resin is plastic. It'll melt in the oven. So this is absolutely revolutionary, I'm telling you guys. So now there's one more product we have not tried, and that is the Blackout. So I have a bunch of colors here that is old colors from Sculpey. This is Sculpey clay, it's not Kato clay. So this is just a bunch of leftovers from a previous project. I am going to mix this with this Blackout and see how it is. Now, where's my scissor? There we go. As kiss. Okay, now I have no idea how much to use of this because I've never used it before. This smells a lot less like a beach ball than what actual Kato does. I'm going to tell you guys that much. Like, normal Kato, when it's lying on my desk and I'm here for the first time, I can smell it. But this, like, I had to bring it all the way to my nose to actually smell it. Okay, I'm going to take just a small piece off the corner here. Just a small piece like that. So there's my little small piece. And then squish it into this. And then we're going to mix it and see what happens. So the Blackout, it does have a little bit of a clay softener, conditioner kind of thing in it as well, which makes it absolutely phenomenal for reviving all of that old scrub clay. You know, the ones that has been sitting in your drawer for like months and months and months? That would be perfect for this because it has a little bit of conditioner, so it will revive that old clay without even thinking twice. Oh my gosh, look at this. So sure, I was expecting this. There is a bit of color transfer on your hands because this is an extremely highly pigmented clay. I was fully expecting that. I couldn't have, like, I can't fault it for that. That's absolutely not, it's to be expected. Sure, I feel like all my words are broken today, guys. Watch this video with caution. But sure, look how quickly it makes this clay so very dark. And you guys saw how small a piece I had in comparison to the rest of the clay. It is making the Sculpey quite soft. It's a little bit softer than what I'm used to with Sculpey. So I don't think this would be great to sculpt with. Yo, the color transfer is real. I don't know if you guys can see on the video, but even where I was like trying to pick up pieces with it, it made a little bit black. So to that end, I would maybe caution against putting it through the pasta machine, because you'll have black on everything for like days. Sure, this is incredible. Okay, so it's not fully mixed yet. There's still a few little lines of color in between there. But if you now compare what we started with against what is in the block now, I think it needs just a little bit more, and then it would be blacky black black. So I'm going to take just a little bit more, not a lot. See, just this tiny little piece. I'm going to do the snake method to mix a bit. You can see the portions of the new black starting to come through there. Yo, this is an incredible product. While I'm mixing this, since my translucent is so sticky, I thought I would leach it. And I think I made a mistake in terms of how much I leached it, because it ended up being quite brittle. But then mixing in some more fresh translucent revived that quite a fair bit. So just a heads up there in terms of if you have a block that's a bit fresh and feels sticky, that you can leach it, and it's all right. I must just get used to the brand of clay, you know, like I've been using Sculpey almost exclusively for quite a while. So as you mix it in deeper and deeper, the color transfer is a lot less. So like it's not giving off on my tile at the moment anymore. I was actually able to pick up the color transfer that was there. My hands are still quite a bit black, but I'm not too worried about that, because it's quite easy to grab a wet wipe and just go over that. But sure, look at this. So it's not quite black, but it is certainly an option. I think if you were to mix in some black normal clay with this, because I'm scared to add more of this, because it does have a clay softener. So either have a fairly large amount of this with fairly old clay that it actually does need clay softener, or you have to mix in a bit of actual black to get it more black. But I am very much impressed with this product. This is amazing. So now for Hartrada's final thoughts. I have some very controversial opinions that I formed over this past week. I am personally of the opinion that if you are an earring maker, Kato is absolutely the ticket, for two reasons. Number one, it holds its shape fantastically. It is really difficult to misform this clay when you're moving it around. So whether you're a beginner, whether you're a professional that just don't want to think about things, this clay is really hard to mess up. Even in terms of like putting bubbles in it, it's really hard to mess it up. Like this blue, for example, like there's barely bubbles in it, and I mean, I was messing with this really. I was really messing around with this. Like these 5 pieces I cannot take responsibility for. So this is how bad it would potentially look. Like this is the worst that you can get in terms of bubbles and such if you're not being careful. The majority of the time, if you're employing all of the practices to avoid bubbles, you're never going to get bubbles in Kato. Like, it is such a gorgeous clay to work with. It is quite stiff to get it conditioned and to work with initially, to get it going. It very much is a clay that doesn't really want to move fast. Like, it'll move, but it doesn't like moving fast, which leads me to the next point. Doing marbles with Kato is a little bit hard because the clay is quite stiff, and when you do that twisting thing that you need to do with marbles, it's very difficult to get it to do the twist without tearing apart. So if you roll it to a small snake and you make sure your snake is quite warm to the touch, you'd be able to do it. But this is exactly the property that makes caning with it so fantastic, because it likes to move slow. If you move it slow, it will move beautifully. If you move it fast, it will break apart and cause a mess. So for caning, I think that this clay would probably, it is worldwide, it is known as the best caning clay, but in my own personal opinion, I'm on the same boat. And then in terms of making earrings, it's also fantastic for the reason that you would have color mixes that is your own, because of the fact that Kato doesn't have base colors. Like, it doesn't have, for example, olive green or plum or mauve colors or something like that. You have to go and actually apply your own brain and mix those colors yourself, which means that you're going to end up with bespoke colors, which means copying or somebody selling stuff that are very similar to your stuff will be a lot less, because there's no way for them to know what your color recipe was, which is a very big plus for some people. If you are uncomfortable with the color wheel, if you're uncomfortable with mixing colors, spend some time getting to know it using a different brand where you do have alternative colors and you can play around a little bit more. But yeah, like, I do think that if you're serious about making earrings, at least try out Kato, see how it works for you. Don't dismiss this clay. This clay is phenomenal. Then in terms of the standout products, the translucent clay, the liquid translucent clay, and the Blackout is, let me just turn the logo up, there you go, and the Blackout. It is absolutely revolutionary. It is groundbreaking. It is something that you will not find in any other brand. You will not find this anywhere else. So if you were to buy only 2 products of Kato, I would say go for Blackout and the liquid clay. Do bear in mind, however, that the liquid clay has to cure at a bit of a higher temperature. It has to go at 150 degrees. I haven't tested it yet at 130, which is what Sculpey asked for. So I'm not sure how it will play nicely in that regard, which is why I think that if you were to use Kato liquid clay as a resin substitute, it might be best to stick with Sculpey, because to stick with Kato because Kato clay needs to bake at the same temperature than what the liquid clay from Kato has to bake. So it's just more like for like, and it's not a small temperature gap, it is a huge one. I know for a fact Sculpey is going to change color at 150 degrees, even if it's just for 20 minutes. So just bear that in mind as a recommendation, and when you make your decision for yourself. But overall, this is a fantastic clay. Oh, about the smell. So I'm a person that is very, shall we say, smell sensitive. Like, I couldn't even use Clayology because the smell was too much for me. The stickiness and the bendiness and the rest aside. But with Kato, the smell when you first open up the packages it's strong. If you're looking to smell the smell, it is a strong smell. It's a very strong beach ball smell. But once you start working with it, and if it's been in like your studio or your workspace or wherever you end up doing your clay, if you've been around it for a bit, you stop smelling it, you stop noticing it, that there is a smell. You get used to it very much. If you leave clay open on your work desk, you walk away and you come back, you can smell it. It does exude that smell. It's not like the surface stop interacting with whatever it's interacting to cause the smell and then stop smelling or something like that. That doesn't happen. It continues to do it. When you bake it, I very much highly recommend to try and bake it in either a space that you can close the door of and not have to be around while it's baking, or that you can like move away from, because my oven is in the garage because my husband hates the smell of baking clay. So it's in the garage, and where it is, if you come closer than about 2 meters to the oven, it is a very strong, it's the kind of smell that hits you between the eyes. I haven't had the opportunity to get used to it because I wasn't exposed to it for very long. It's only when I go and fetch the clay or when I go check on the clay that I smelt it. But once it is out of the oven, when it's cooled down, the resulting pieces, these pieces, have no smell. There's absolutely no smell at all. So to that end, if you can work with the smell, if you can not smell it while it's baking, it's not going to bother you too much. And I really don't think it's something that should deter you from trying it. But yeah, that's my full thing. So too long didn't read summary would be absolutely fantastic for earrings. I like it. You have to adjust your conditioning mechanism a little bit. You can check my first video to see how I ended up figuring out how to condition it. And other than that, I have not really found great negatives of this clay. It behaves a little bit differently to Sculpey and such if you're used to that kind of level of softness. This is a very firm clay, but once you've overcome that, it is a fantastic clay to work with. I absolutely love it. And that's it. Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening to me rambling. Please like this video if you want to see some more of my stuff. And don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Have fun, everybody. Bye.